Imagine a winter night in the Swiss Alps, a wooden chalet, a steady fire, and a small pot warming at the center of the table. Welcome to Worldwide Delicious, where every dish is a story you can share. Today we travel to Switzerland for cheese fondue, a comfort ritual built on melted cheese, white wine, and bread served from one shared pot. Fondue is not only flavor, it is togetherness. It invites everyone to lean in, slow down, and take turns, while the room fills with warmth and conversation. In mountain villages, harsh winters limited fresh food, so families relied on preserved cheese, sturdy bread, and local wine. Melting those staples turns scarcity into comfort. That is the heart of fondue, a practical idea that became a beloved tradition. Across the next parts, we will follow its path from Alpine peasant tables to city apartments and festive dinner parties around the world. We will talk about early cookbooks, regional cheeses, and the little rituals that make the pot feel like a celebration. You will hear why garlic matters, why steady heat matters, and why the right texture feels like silk instead of glue. Most of all, you will feel the social magic because fondue is a meal that requires attention to the people around you. Keep listening, because the story gets bigger as Switzerland begins to treat fondue as a national symbol and the world begins to copy the ritual at home. If you love food that carries history, comfort, and culture in one bite, subscribe to Worldwide Delicious and join me at the table for the next journey. By the end, you will know how to spot a classic fondue and why one shared pot can turn a simple dinner into a memory that lasts. To find the first trail of fondue, you have to climb into the Alpine past, where winter closed roads and fresh markets for months. In the 18th century, many Swiss families depended on what could be stored: wheels of cheese, loaves of bread, and bottles of wine. Time made the bread hard and the cheese stronger, and eating them plain could feel like work. A simple solution appeared: soften the cheese with warm wine and turn old bread into something tender again. An early written hint shows up in a Zurich cookbook from the late 17th century, describing cheese cooked with wine, a method that melts, smooths, and stretches the cheese. The technique was practical. It reduced waste and lifted spirits on cold nights. Later, in the 19th century, the dish gained a name that matched its action. A French cookbook used the word fondue, from the verb that means to melt, placing the focus on the transformation inside the pot. From that point, the idea traveled by word of mouth, by mountain neighbors, and by families who carried recipes across valleys. Different regions used different cheeses, because each area had its own herds, its own milk, and its own aging traditions. Still, the structure stayed consistent: a gentle heat, a splash of wine, and steady stirring until rough pieces became a unified cream. Fondue did not begin as a restaurant dish. It began as a way to make do, and that origin gave it a sturdy personality. Even today, when you dip a cube of bread and lift it out, you are repeating an old Alpine habit, turning what is available into what is delicious. It is comfort with a history, and every swirl of the spoon carries the lesson that patience can make simple ingredients sing. Through the 19th century, fondue stayed close to home, a regional specialty shaped by language, landscape, and local cheese. In the French-speaking areas, a classic blend emerged that many people still call the standard, a mix known as half and half. It pairs a firm, nutty cheese like Gruyere with a softer, creamy cheese like Vacherin from the region of Fribourg, creating balance between strength and melt. White wine joins the pot for brightness and for chemistry, helping the proteins stay smooth instead of clumping. Garlic adds fragrance before the first shred of cheese even touches the heat, because the pot is rubbed with a cut clove to perfume the surface. Many cooks finish with a small splash of kirsch, a cherry spirit that adds a quiet aroma and a little warmth in the background. The method is as important as the ingredients. The wine is warmed gently, the cheese is added in stages, and the spoon keeps moving in calm circles. Too much heat can break the sauce and separate fat from solids, but a steady flame gives a glossy texture that coats bread like velvet. When the fondue is right, it clings without running, it stretches without turning rubbery, and it tastes rich without feeling heavy. The bread matters too, because a firm cube holds its shape long enough to dip and twist, then releases a clean bite. This is why fondue feels like a ritual. It rewards patience. And it invites everyone to watch the pot together as the surface begins to shimmer. In many homes, the first dip is treated like a small ceremony. Everyone waits. Then someone tests the texture and nods. That nod says the night has started, and the table becomes a circle of shared comfort for every person there. Fondue became truly famous when Switzerland decided to present it as part of its national character. In the early 20th century, a group formed to support Swiss cheese producers during difficult economic years. They encouraged people to eat more cheese, and they used fondue as the perfect message, because it was social, home-centered, and built from local products. During the years between the World Wars and through the Global Depression, the campaign framed fondue as a dish that belonged to everyone in the country, not only to one valley. That story worked because fondue already carried values people recognized: sharing warmth and practical comfort. At the same time, fondue sets began to travel. A pot, a burner, and long forks sold together, making it easy to recreate the ritual at home. After the Second World War, tourism expanded and Switzerland became a dream destination for mountains, trains, and chalet nights. For many visitors, eating fondue was a highlight, a taste of Alpine life served with a view and a story. By the 1950s and 1960s, international travel and a growing interest in regional cuisines helped fondue move beyond Swiss borders. People returned home, wanting to repeat the experience, and the pot became a symbol of cozy winter dining. Even when recipes changed slightly, the central idea stayed intact: a shared pot that pulls everyone closer. Fondue proved that a humble peasant technique could become a cultural ambassador, carrying Switzerland to tables that had never seen Alpine snow. Once it arrived in new kitchens, it taught a lesson about atmosphere. You could be in a city apartment, yet the slow, bubbling cheese and the circle of forks made the room feel like a chalet. That feeling, more than any ingredient, is what made fondue travel everywhere. When cheese fondue reached the United States, it matched the mood of the time. In the 1960s, many households were fascinated by international flavors and by meals that felt like an event. Fondue offered both, and it turned dinner into something interactive. The pot sat in the middle like a small stage, and long forks gave every guest a role. Fondue parties became fashionable, with friends gathered close, music playing softly, and everyone watching the surface of the cheese for the next perfect dip. The idea was also flexible, so new variations appeared quickly. Sweet fondue with melted chocolate invited fruit and cake to join the ritual, while savory versions expanded into cooking meat in hot broth or oil, then dipping it into sauces. Even with these changes, the social heart stayed the same: one heat source, one shared center, and a conversation that moved as slowly as the pot. Later, the trend cooled. In the 1970s and 1980s, lighter eating styles became popular and rich cheese dishes were less celebrated in mainstream culture. Still, fondue never vanished because it carries nostalgia in its aroma. As soon as the weather turns cold, people remember how it feels to gather around a warm pot and eat at an unhurried pace. That is why fondue returns for holidays, winter weekends, and moments when a group wants comfort more than novelty. A bubbling pot can turn an ordinary table into a shared experience, and that is stronger than any passing food trend. Some dishes impress by being rare. Fondue impresses by being inviting. It gives people permission to relax, to laugh when someone hesitates, to celebrate small mistakes, and to keep talking while the cheese stays hot and forgiving. In the end, everyone leaves warmer than they arrived. In Switzerland, fondue is a cultural experience as much as a recipe. It belongs to social gatherings and family meals, especially during cold months when people want food that holds heat and holds attention. The communal aspect is the point. Diners dip into the same pot, and that shared center creates unity without anyone needing to say it. Over time, playful customs grew around the pot. If someone loses a piece of bread in the cheese, the table may assign a light-hearted forfeit, like buying drinks for the group or offering a friendly kiss. These rules are less about punishment and more about laughter, keeping the mood warm and the focus on each other. The preparation itself is also a ritual. The cook rubs the inside of the coquelin with garlic to perfume the base, then warms wine gently and adds cheese gradually while stirring in calm circles. The goal is a smooth surface that shines, not a boiling frenzy. Many homes serve fondue with cubes of bread and sometimes with boiled potatoes, pickles, and small onions. So every bite can change without changing the pot. Each guest learns the technique: dip, twist, lift slowly, and wait a breath so the cheese does not drip or burn. That waiting is part of the charm because it forces the meal to move at a shared pace. When the pot is nearly empty, a toasted layer forms at the bottom, and people treat it like a final reward because it tastes nutty and concentrated. In a world that eats fast, fondue protects slowness, and slowness makes room for connection. You do not just taste cheese. You taste a winter tradition that turns a table into a circle. The longer you sit, the better it feels, and everyone notices right away. In the contemporary food world, cheese fondue has found new energy. As people show more interest in regional traditions, many chefs and home cooks return to fondue because it feels honest and celebratory. At the same time, they enjoy experimenting. Some add a small amount of blue cheese for a sharper edge. Others bring in goat cheese for a tangy lift, and some replace wine with beer to create a deeper, toasted note. These changes work best when the texture stays smooth and the heat stays gentle, because fondue is still about harmony. Modern preferences have also shaped the pot. Gluten-free diners use different breads or potatoes, and plant-based versions appear more often, using dairy-free cheeses and creamy bases that aim for the same comforting pull. The goal is not to imitate perfectly, but to keep the shared ritual alive for more people at the table. Beyond Switzerland, other cultures have embraced the idea and made it their own. In parts of France, especially in the Savoy region, a related tradition uses local cheeses with a mountain character, turning the pot into a regional signature. In Italy, a similar dish called fonduta is built around fontina, and in some places it is finished with truffle for an earthy aroma that feels luxurious. Each variation proves the same point. Fondue is a technique and a social format, not only one fixed recipe. It connects the past to the present because it respects tradition while allowing creativity. When the pot bubbles and everyone reaches in, the world outside fades, and the meal becomes a shared pause. That is why fondue keeps returning. It fits winter nights, celebrations, and quiet dinners alike. It reminds us that good food is often a reason to stay together a little longer. The story of cheese fondue is a journey from necessity to celebration. It began as a smart way to soften aging cheese and stale bread in Alpine winters, then gained a name that honored the act of melting, and grew into a proud symbol of Swiss hospitality. Marketing efforts and tourism helped it travel, but fondue stayed popular because the experience is universal. A shared pot creates a shared pace, and a shared pace creates conversation. Even when trends changed and rich dishes fell out of fashion, fondue kept its place as winter comfort and festive nostalgia. Today, it continues to evolve, welcoming new cheeses, new liquids, and new dietary approaches while keeping its core promise: warmth, simplicity, and community. If you ever make it yourself, remember the rule that guides the pot: gentle heat and steady stirring. Let the wine warm slowly. Add the cheese in stages, and watch for that glossy surface that tells you everything has come together. Then invite people to the table, because fondue is at its best when it is shared. Thank you for joining me on Worldwide Delicious for this Swiss classic. If you enjoyed this journey, subscribe to the channel and come back for the next dish from somewhere else in the world. Leave a comment with the place you want us to visit next and the comfort food that reminds you of home. Until next time, keep your curiosity hungry, keep your table welcoming, and keep the pot warm. Share this video with a friend who loves cheese, and save it for the first cold night when you want something cozy. When you dip that first cube of bread, listen for the quiet pause around the table. That is the tradition speaking, and it will make everyone smile.